Well, our political correspondent Rob Powell is in Westminster for us now. And Rob, the list of candidates keep growing. 9 so far, and the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is expected to also launch her bid within the next 24 hours. It's starting to look very crowded.
Yeah, I think it's been known for some time, months, in fact, I'd say, that Liz Truss would be having a go at the top job when a vacancy came free. We understand she will officially launch her campaign in the next 24 hours. One of her allies, Simon Clarke, a Treasury Minister, has been in the Sunday papers today as good as setting out some of Liz Truss's pledges. And the pledges that we're getting from her team today are pretty similar to what we're hearing from almost all of the other leadership candidates. And it's the T word, tax, almost a race to see who can put forward the most tax cuts. You heard Tom Tugendhat there in that interview with Sophie Ridge talking about cutting national insurance and fuel duty. He's long been a critic of that national insurance rise. That is, of course, the tax rise that came in April that will be rebranded the Health and Social Care Levy next year, essentially initially paying to fund the NHS and to help with COVID backlogs, and then will go into funding reforms into social care. Controversial when it was brought through. Many privately in the Conservative Party were unhappy, and it seems that that unhappiness is now breaking out into the open, because we've also had Sajid Javid, who was in fact Health Secretary when that tax to pay for healthcare and social care was brought in, so sat there and presumably, yes, voted for it, now saying that he would reverse it, and it's not something he would have done if he was Chancellor. Liz Truss as well, saying that she would reverse the national insurance rise. Grant Shapps not talking about that, but talking about income tax and bringing forward a 1p income tax cut. Jeremy Hunt, as you heard in that clip, talking more about business taxes and corporation tax. That's something that's also been focused on by other leadership contenders. Other people like Nadhim Zahawi and Suella Braverman have also made a big play for their tax-cutting credentials. Now, why are they doing this? Well, I think the strategy is on this part anyway, that because they are appealing not necessarily to the general public, but to Tory MPs and Tory members, the logic is, if you say you'll cut taxes, then you'll get votes. Well, yes, to an extent, but I think competence also matters in all of this. That's to say, I think the people voting, the rank and file Tory card-carrying members around the country, have got to believe that you're able to make your sums add up and that you can pay for some of these tax rises. And bluntly, we're already hearing quite a lot of shade thrown on some of these claims. The IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, which is pretty down the line on this sort of stuff, a team of economists that scrutinises the government's work, its boss Paul Johnson has already said today that if we are going to have tax cuts of some of these levels, then people need to be honest that it means things like public pay not keeping up with rising prices, so real terms cuts for people that work in the public sector, or it means more borrowing, which would go against potentially Conservative manifesto promises. I think as well, what appeals to Conservative Party members and MPs doesn't necessarily win votes in the broader public. And I think whilst you can make a pretty good argument for cutting business taxes and corporation tax, if the first thing a new Prime Minister did in the middle of a cost of living crisis was drop taxes for businesses, I think bluntly the Labour Party would be licking their lips at that prospect. In terms of new entrants we've had today, Penny Mordaunt, an international trade minister, has become the 9th person to enter the race. She's posted quite a patriotic video online on Twitter saying it needs to be less about the leader and more about the ship. Penny Mordaunt, of course, has a military background. She's also been quite keen to get on the front foot and dispel, as she sees it anyway, some issues around sort of identity politics and gender identity that she has come under fire for in the past. As I say, a 10th candidate, Liz Truss, will likely announce in the next 24 hours. Expect, as well as tax, another big issue to potentially be the candidates' relationships and how close they were with Boris Johnson. We're already starting to get a sense of that in the interviews this morning. Jeremy Hunt being pretty clear about his distaste, shall we say, for the current interim Prime Minister on the way out in the coming weeks. Grant Shapps, on the other hand, talking up essentially Boris Johnson and saying his problem may have been that he was too loyal, and talking up essentially his credentials as someone that stuck with the Prime Minister and didn't spend a lot of time plotting. Now, I think we are certainly going to get to 10 candidates. There have been people tweeting support for the Home Secretary Priti Patel overnight, so we may well go even higher than 10. It will be for senior Conservative MPs that set the rules on this leadership race tomorrow to decide whether they want to tighten the rules and compress the leadership contest to try and whittle those candidates down to 2 in a quick way.